Welcome, and in today's video we're going to explore some construction photos of what seems to be a early 1900s type World's Fair as seen all over the world. And these were sent to me in a comment, and I'll show you the website here in a minute, and it doesn't give an exact location or dates, but nevertheless you can tell these are authentic pictures. And the pictures appear to be constructed out of wood and then surfaced with some kind of a stone or cast, as you will see. But even with that said, the construction photos are still very suspicious. This was sent in showing construction photos and asking me to refute these, if possible. And I find it very fascinating. Let us have a look at the construction. Now, unfortunately, I'm not seeing where this is. Maybe if I click here, I don't know. In any case, I think we have a good idea that this is probably the construction or renovation of some kind of building in this very similar style that we see at all the world's fairs and whatnot. And let's zoom in on this here. And really beautiful, really very intricate work and some controller type character. And I'm just really amazed. I think it's really somewhat depicting this construction and also somewhat not. As if one option could be that somebody had walked upon and arrived on this site and began perhaps finishing it. Or in my photography video recently, I talked about the possibility that photography could be older, and perhaps these people in these construction photos could be older. And, a lot of the World's Fairs buildings were apparently built in only 2 years in some instances. And yet with this manpower, or lack of it, it doesn't seem very realistic. And, one thing that we notice is, yes, a wood core. A wood core construction with a stone facing. And so, there doesn't seem to be any coring of stone, and there doesn't seem to be any stones in sight. And later I'll show you a picture here where it shows these kit pieces that appear to have been brought in, perhaps on a railroad, and assembled later. And this appears to be some of them. These are pieces, perhaps, that have been brought in by train and later will be assembled. So very interesting. But again, no people working. Very, very few people. And yet again, very little labor force here. Always a few people here and there, as if there was a civilization, as we discuss in many of these videos, and they were wiped out, and many of their buildings could have been under construction, and would have been, if this was at one point a thriving culture. And we walk up and we begin to dilly-dally, and maybe the wood that we're seeing is our people now coming and trying to finish these structures, or repair them in some cases. But again, not much stone on site. Not what you would expect for this type of building. We see more wood than we do stone. And here it looks like a snowy day. Okay, we can say that not many people wanted to work on this snowy day. Looks like one man's up here. And again, I just have to question, are we just arriving on this scene? Where are all of the people? Here's a couple guys. Okay, so, here is the means of moving the building material. Here it is. Horse. It's like a couple horses and a little cart. and a bunch of cut trees next to the railroad tracks. But again, a couple guys, 4 or 5 guys here, one moving, a little blurred, but really a pretty quick capturing of the image. And we're completely power lined up here. Power, lights, but yet very primitive. Our people still seem very primitive, and we don't see very many examples of actual building. Again, just tinkering. Here, does it make sense? I mean, we have what they would call flagpoles installed before the building is even done. And let's have a little look, a little closer here. I mean, these columns, and again, the magnitude. These people and their modes of transportation, and these are a horse and wood people. And we'll take a look at some of the buildings surrounding these amazing buildings, and they're just very simple wooden buildings. Ornamentation completely installed, the finest detail installed, and nothing that shows any creation of any of this. Amazing ornamentation. And what we do see is just a bunch of wood and people with primitive carts. And we'll also look at some of the dirt surrounding these areas. How are you going to excavate with a horse to this degree? Now, actually, up here we did see something I wanted to show you. And here's a little peek at some of these cast pieces. So these appear to be like a cast stone, cast kind of geopolymer or whatever, on top of sticks or maybe metal, and they've been cast on here so that they can actually be mounted onto the sides. And again, were these primitive people building this, or did they arrive and just finish these structures and perhaps replicate them for some time? Now here's a great image. Again, the magnitude of even this wooden structure, or this core, and then these workers, or not workers. It's always the same thing, and the air that they put off is, really suspicious. Really suspicious. I mean, how much, what's going on with this saw? Here we go. I mean, how much are you really getting done with this crew? This crew is worthless. Half of these guys are clearly not workers. This little handsaw. I mean, this looks like a staged picture. This guy with his little hammer. No way. And, we should expect to see a bunch of people. And these people are clearly inheritors. Very suspicious. And here again, a bunch of wood. And again, notice the moving of the soil, and really seeming as if there was something else here before. There's already trees, there's already a sidewalk, and yet I want you to notice how we build now. And here is a modern looking building. I mean, this is what we build like. And here again we can see what looks like a wood core being faced with these precast pieces. But again, we don't see a crane here. We don't see any means to even hoist these up here. Again, we're talking about a horse people. I mean, we don't have machinery and hydraulics, and we do have electricity, but it doesn't seem to be employed in this building. And again, the moving of all of this earth with horse and very few people. Here again is a very suspicious photo and a very suspicious man, and nobody in these construction photos, as if every day is Sunday, and typically people work on Sunday. I mean, especially the hard workers that we're told everybody was back then. So here we see the Moorish palace. Very interesting. The Moorish palace, feature of the fair, installed at costs, I can't read the rest of that. And it seems we have a contractor, J.A. and Son something glass weavers. And here we have 2 people. And this Antiquitech is really interesting. I mean, what is going on here? Look at this amazingness. And here we do have a guy working, assembling a dome, it looks like. And so I'm really torn, This is really, really interesting. In some ways we have what seems to be building, and some doesn't make sense. And here we can see some of these cast type pieces. And again, complete wooden everything, but yet ornamentation already set on top, as we can see here. And we do see some sort of hoisting and pulley systems, so that could explain getting these up on top. And what we see are these cast pieces resting on what appears to be wood. So very interesting. And really, even with wood, really amazing. I mean, an amazing accomplishment for what seems to be so few people really doing very little. You would expect men hanging on the sides and on the scaffolding and just all over the place. But not much action here. And yet accomplishing much. Here we can see a little skyline view back here. And here again some of these cast pieces, as if they've been cast right onto these either wood or metal frames, and will be fastened onto the side. And I'm just not sure, again, if we are completing this. I mean, why is all this ornamentation in place? And look at the amazing excavation, even, of all of this ground. But still pretty amazing. I am still very impressed, nevertheless. And perhaps this is some kind of a hidden technology, and we don't really see it in action. And again, the types of homes and structures that we would expect of the people of this time, with their horses and their wood. Just a very simple building. But this, and especially for a World's Fair, I mean, you don't even have people to build, it looks like, let alone visit. And your modes of transportation doesn't make sense. Here it appears as if there's a dead horse. So yes, very neglected, as if this is an old construction site and we are just tinkering. Construction site from an older people. This reminds me of things we would see all over the world. Cast cement does not really seem to fit our narrative. But yet here it is. Here it is, and this is the apparent construction photos of one of these World's Fairs. And so it does seem as if these are wooden. So they've actually cast these pieces onto wood, and now perhaps they will attach them with nails. I don't know, but really interesting. And again, very little productivity here, but very nice framing, very standard stick framing practices we use today. And just a lot of rubble, really, seeming like something else. Here's a man running. Here looks like the contractor and maybe the foreman. And here it is, I guess, almost complete. And just really mysterious, if anything. I mean, this is just, here is a link to construction photos that somebody sends me and asks that I have a look at. And really, it's almost more confusing, the amount of progress with the little people and little resources, as if, this work is being done at nighttime with some other kind of means or technology. It reminds me of the Coral Castle story in Florida, where the man built his castle overnight and then was forced to move the castle or demolish it. He chose to move it to another location, and he did this overnight by himself. And this photo I found really interesting of this man. Perhaps he's the one that makes the casts single-handedly, it appears. There's a couple guys back here, I suppose. Let's have a closer look. Okay, so here we do have a little crew of people making these casts. Very interesting. Back here. So this is a casting factory. Really amazing. Some skilled artisans. Some of it has been blurred out. And here we can see a snowy day. Tons of antiquitech. Here again is a great example of the magnitude of this excavation work that we see here. Massive moving of dirt. And here is the dirt moving crew. I'm not sure if this is a staged photo, because not much is going on here with these 5 guys. Not much moving of dirt at all. And even with horse, this would still be very difficult. And here we do see a little crew. We do see some people working some kind of machinery here. And it looks like a combination of wooden footings, and we even have what appears to be some concrete footing here, so I'm not really sure. But a very interesting photo of these characters. Not really seeming like they're doing much, once again. One guy back here. And I found this photo really interesting, showing this antiquitech, and really again seeming like this was already here and overgrown and just being rebuilt. Again, imagine the amount of moving of dirt. Look at the excavation work down here and all throughout this whole water feature. And now, no bulldozers, no tractors. I mean, you have these horses. Here it is. And just really remarkable to imagine that people would even attempt something like this. And notice the antiquitech up here, the ball. Now one would say this is a flagpole, but I don't know. Here this wire continues down, and a lot of wire action around here. Insulators, it looks like, or simply mounting for the wires, which run along these wires, which run along this whole side of this, seeming very much more like a technology than a flagpole in this picture. Otherwise, you're really blocking this pretty decor here. But it tells me that that wasn't the purpose. This was actually more technology and not pretty decor, even though it is beautiful. And again, here, how we build, how we move about, and all of this seems way too overkill. And this photo is really interesting because, we have all this wooden building, but now what we see is concrete and perhaps steel and a lot of steel machinery. And this concrete work is massive. I mean, nowhere did we see there's no concrete horse-pulled means of delivery. And this is a massive, massive amount of concrete work here. And here we can see anchors ready to support columns And so this seems really ahead of, a lot of this woodwork that we're seeing. And we don't seem to have the ability. I mean, you would need a plant nearby to produce all of this concrete, and we don't see that. We see very primitive means. And this photo really is showing something else. Showing that this is a foundation of something much older, and lending to the idea that we are just finishing structures here. Finishing abandoned construction sites at best, at very best. Otherwise, I don't know how these people would produce so much cement. And just always interesting. Here's a bunch of people kind of doing nothing, posing, and not seeming like workers, seeming like inheritors, always very suspicious. So here we see an American flag, and I'm not sure what flag this is, but these characters, and even these characters in this picture, I don't know who we have here, not seeming like anyone I recognize. So is this really America? Really interesting, suspicious characters as always. This man appears to have some kind of a halo thing around his head. What is going on here? And here another great depiction of the creation, and this almost seeming reminiscent of the faceless night in some kind of way. And here we can see how this cast has somehow been slapped onto this wood and affixed to it. Really amazing for any time. And this man seems to be behind it, or at least he wants us to believe that. Really beautiful. And strange faces within the art, seeming like controller art. And again, the style of the old world. Nothing less. And here we do see apparent construction, and this does lend to possibilities, but also opens up a lot of mysteries as well. And we have to realize that to this day we're really not doing this. And again, these primitive means and these amazing feats and apparent construction photos. So I don't know what to think of this, but I just wanted to share it, as I think it has a place in this story. And here we can see these sections, again, as if it was a kit that was engineered off-premise, built off-premise or cast, and brought in and assembled in pieces like a kit. And absolutely remarkable. A couple suspicious characters as always, and very little people. And here we have a little look at the construction of a dome. In conclusion, I just wanted to say that these photos really prove nothing for the construction of much of the amazing, authentic stonework found all over the world, and built in this very same fashion, but of hard stones and not these cheap replicas. So this seems to depict a transition period. So that's it for today. I do hope you enjoyed, and have a blessed day. Please like, comment, and subscribe.